and I know that GCCs hire predominantly from IT services companies. And when they lose talent, they actually lose to other GCCs. What are the frictions do you think GCCs face when it comes to talent? Hi, and welcome to Xfino's GCC Talent Podcast. I just want to dwell a little deeper today around various talent movements that we need to recognize in the tech sector. Should we imagine that talent starts from somewhere and aspires to be at the top? What would that look like? Let's say if there is a technology talent aspiration pyramid, let's call it TAP. How would it actually look like? So you passed out of college, you are a fresh engineer, and you didn't get a job, let's say, and you had to land somewhere. Where would you land? Yeah, it doesn't look that bad, but sometimes we end up working at the neighborhood IT service provider, a hospital nearby, a pharmaceutical company which predominantly may not have technology professionals with it, or a bank. So when you look at where technology professionals are likely to start from, it could be a non-tech company which possibly hires technology people. So if you look at 8.5 lakh engineers who passed out last year, of which 2.5 lakh of them were computer science graduates, and we know that many kind of jobs are not available for freshers, where would they start? Yeah, the lucky ones would get to join a larger product company, a startup, or a GCC, IT services companies. So let's look at if there is a imaginary tech talent aspiration pyramid. So let's start at the bottom. So if you have 2.5 lakh computer science graduates passing out and they had to get a job and they didn't get anywhere, they would start possibly in a bank or let's say a hospital or a pharmaceutical company. That's not where they want to go, but let's say they started there. How many people work there today as technology professionals? About close to 5.5 lakh. Then let's say they get a better opportunity from there. The next cohort that we talk about after the non-tech companies are IT services companies. And you and I know there are about close to 25 lakh professionals working in the IT services sector today in India. Of course, it starts with, let's say, the MNC bellwethers like Accentures, IBMs, and CapGs of the world, and the Indian bellwethers like the Infosys, TCS, Wipro kind of companies. And you also have the mid-tier companies like the Coforge, Emphasis, Persistence of the world. So this put together is almost 25 lakh people working out there. And given an opportunity, and let's say they have to move up, you would look at the consulting companies, the big four, or rather the big 10, today employ close to about 3.2 lakh engineers. And we know as a business model, they do deploy technology talent to companies, right? So that's about 3.2 lakh people there. And in this aspiration pyramid, if you look at it, next comes what we call as the GCCs. So GCCs today, we know employ close to about 2 million people in India, 20 lakh people. And we've always stated that from an aspiration point of view, talent would like to move from IT services to, let's say, GCCs, right? So today, we're talking about 2 million people, and over and above that would what I call as the IT product companies. Yeah, you can say that GCCs and product companies are similar, but for our argument today, let's say that the product companies are a little above the GCCs. When I say that, I talk about the MAN companies, the Metas, the Apple, the Amazons, the Microsofts, and the Google kind of companies, where if you ask a campus recruit coming out of an IIT, they say, I would like to join Google, right? So that's an aspiration which is above GCC, let's say. And top of IT product companies, what would that be? Can we consider startups as top of the pyramid today, if that's the sixth tech cohort that we want to consider? Because today there are about close to 6 lakh people, 5.9 lakh engineers who are working in the startup community. And why would we say with all, the talk about 95% of startups fail and still the technology professionals want to work there at the top of the pyramid? One, clearly there is monetary emoluments involved. There are ESOPs that people encash faster. And most importantly, when we talk to the engineers, what we get to hear is that what I work on today, tomorrow you can see my work there. Let's say you're an engineer at a Zepto or a Zomato, and you would put something out there and say, hey, look, that's the feature that I developed, right? So that is where we see that the aspiration pyramid starts from non-tech companies, moves up to IT services companies, then the consulting companies, the GCCs, the product companies, and the startup. That's what we call at Xfino the Tech Talent Aspiration Pyramid, or rather the TAP. But then being in India, and looking at the world that we live in, would you consider that going overseas is the highest level of aspiration for a technology professionals? Maybe not for all of us, but it's an aspiration up there. So every year, India loses a significant number of technology professionals overseas. In fact, I was just looking at what was the figures for last year. Last 12 months, in fact, 38,000 software engineers left India. Of course, about 22,000 software engineers also came back. So net, you can say almost 16,000 people net left India from the technology field last year. But then last 12 months have not been so great for these movements, right? If you look at the previous year, when I look at the data, almost close to 50,000 people left India. So the numbers are decreasing, but nevertheless, with all the cycles, there's still a significant number of software engineers leaving India. And if you just look at one city, I was looking at the number of people who left Bengaluru, for example. So the last 12 months, almost 5,100 technology professionals left the Bangalore-based GCCs. So why I'm talking about GCC here suddenly? Because that's the friction that GCCs are going through across the country. So we're talking about 38,000 people who left India, and I'm not referring to how many of them actually left the GCCs from India. So sheer just Bangalore example is 5,100 software engineers left Bengaluru GCCs last year alone, the last 12 months. So net, the way to understand is that there is a tremendous amount of pressure on these 6 tech cohorts in India today. And one is the pressure created by people leaving, right? We're talking about an attrition level anywhere from 12% to about 18%, depending on which segment we're talking about. The non-tech companies, software engineers move to services companies, and from services they move to consulting to GCCs, GCCs to product and startups and overseas. So that's, let's say, a 7-layered friction that we can say. And of course, the people are coming back to, right? So when I looked at the number of people who came back to, let's say, just Bengaluru GCC last year was close to about 4,000. Of course, they came back from cities like London, Dubai, Singapore, Toronto. So almost 40% of people came from these, four top cities. So net, the way to look at the talent friction that GCCs go through is one, how many people are they losing to product companies? How many people are they losing to, let's say, startups? How many people are they losing to overseas, right? So that's the context I wanted to leave you with today. Happy to hear your comments on what do you think of what other frictions that talent cohort is going through and what the friction that GCCs are facing in India.